Hello, everyone. And I'm supposed to be here talking about.
Sorry, had to change my shirt. I just got in.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna say I'm supposed to have a partner here.
Yeah. I recorded the last session from home, and I had yes. Anyway,
Okay,
I'm here.
I'm glad you made it.
Yes, I'm
All
excited
right.
to be here.
So my name is Myra Wenzel. I'm a program manager for the .NET website, and I invited John to be here with me for this talk.
Yeah, so I am a ASP.NET developer. I'm also teammates with Myra, and I love to write .NET code. And I'm doing a lot of program manager stuff, but anytime I get a chance to write some ASP.NET code, I'm like, yes, let me do it. So I get to be basically a junior dev on your team, which is so fun.
Way better than junior dev. And it's great to have your contributions because we are a tiny, mighty team. So
it's incredible. Like a lot of teams at Microsoft, I mean, the team, you have such a tiny team and you run this huge website, that a lot of people depend on. So it's,
yeah. But today, so we will break the talk in two parts. So one, we're gonna go over the architecture using .NET and Azure to build the .NET website and talk a little bit about the DevOps. And then later, we're gonna talk about the features, how we build some of the cool features and what technology is behind that.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of what we're hoping to do is, like, number one, we want to show you we're using the same stuff we tell you to use,
Exactly.
and also we're showing, hey, we're running a big website. Here's some things we figured out, sometimes the hard way, of how to actually run a site at scale with a small team.
Yeah. And so .NET.Microsoft.com, or like how we dearly call .NET, our main goal is to first drive downloads. That's where you find our product downloads. We have our latest .NET SDK and runtime there for you to get it right now. It's also our entry point for new developers and decision makers. So if you're getting started with .NET, that's the place to go for you to find learning tutorials, learning paths for you to get started with all the goodies that like .NET MAUI, Blazor, console apps, whatever, you name it. And it's also our marketing site. And behind the scenes, we use Razor Pages, Blazor. We have some legacy React components that we are converting to Blazor now. So hoping next time we can share that, and some Azure functions too. And we are currently using Azure App Services to host our site. And so we have a P2 V2, like our V2 pricing tier. So it's like 2 cores, so it's like not like super expensive. And as we said before, it's a tiny team. Like our core team is 1 PM, 2 developers, and 1 analytics and SEO person. So it's like a very small team to run this like 24/7 site. And just to give you an idea of scale, our site received in average, like for the past 6 months, 18 million page views, and we had around 5 million unique visitors each month. So let's jump into the architecture a little bit. So we have, as we said, we have all of those components on Azure running .NET code. And so we have 3 environments. And so we're running on Azure Front Door as our CDN. And so we have 3 environments. We have the dev environment, staging, and production. And our production has an auto failover. So in case we have a failure in production, it goes back to staging automatically. So after a few seconds, it lights up. And so the 3 environments are the same. The 3 environments are the same. And then we have like our pipeline will go through each one of them and update automatically.
Yeah, we're figuring out. My screen's not projecting, so we may be stuck with yours, but
oh, okay.
It'll be fun.
All right. I was like, what's going on? All right. And so we have several pipelines, one for each project that we have going on the site. And so one of our main pipelines has a multi-stage process. So we have build and publish, which will like test if our code is passing through the code check-ins. Then we have something that we'll explore in the next slide about deploying a preview site that we have. And then we have some accessibility scans in our localization pipeline. But we also, at the same time, we run a preview version pipeline. And that allows us to, like, at the same time that we are running the site on the stable version, we can run the preview at the same time on a separate pipeline. And so that allows us to test the product ahead of the release. And we managed to even catch some bugs for .NET 6, so for the previous release, early enough so that, like, it was like we would report back to the product team and make sure that it's like we are delivering a good product. So we use the .NET website as like a dog fooding exercise for us too.
So you can always scroll down on the .NET website and you'll actually see the version you're running, and you're running all the live previews, which, like you said, so you're running it at scale, and you catch some pretty complicated issues sometimes too.
Yeah.
So.
But we, like, for .NET 7, it was pretty smooth. We didn't get any bugs this time.
So that whole pipeline thing and your release process is really nice, because for me as a developer, I don't worry that I'm going to break the production site. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we'll talk about this a little more in a second, but you can actually preview things, you can watch it go through staging, and have some confidence that when it goes to production, it's ready to go.
Yeah, and especially like the staging step, like when we have like some like big releases, like the redesign that we'll talk later. We tested first on staging, and then we caught some bugs that, like, oh, okay, we cannot push it to production. Let's fix it before it goes live. And so it's super important for our process. And so one of the steps that I mentioned in our pipeline, which runs on Azure DevOps, is, but our source code is on GitHub on a private repository, is that this preview pull request side. And so we had this idea of, based on what like the docs team has been doing for years, to have a review site of our changes. And so each pull request that comes through our repo, it will generate this this staging, this like review URL.
I love this so much. So,
I do too.
As a developer, it makes me so happy, because I can go in, I can make a tweak, and I can see it live. I can share it with you. I can update like on the pull request, we can comment on it and say, I don't like the look of this, or it's distracting, or whatever. And you can actually see the live site for every single pull request. It's amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes like even the tiniest change will cause some issues. And so what we would always have to do is, like, before we had this feature, we'd have to download the local branch into our machine, test it out. Okay, it looks good. So this, like, for quick changes, we don't have to do it anymore. So it's great. And so let me share here. So here's the pipelines, our YAML file for this preview slot PR. And so we use like environment variables to like access like the principal name and all of the like those. It logs into Azure, gets like the changes from the pull request and creates. So app services with the pricing tier that we are at gives us like 20 slots for us to work through. So we use those 20 slots to test it out whenever we have a new PR. And so it deploys that build that we just did on the previous step of the pipeline to that deployment slot, and then pastes a comment with the URL on the PR.
So you're almost kind of getting that for free. Like the level of Azure subscription you have includes these staging slots, so why not use them?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And then we have, when the PR is done and it closes, then we have a GitHub action that cleans up that resource after we're done with it.
To keep that pool fresh.
Yeah. And so that's the GitHub action that we use. So it's a similar process for that. All right, let's go back to here.
Oh no, now we're going to talk about a bug.
Is it your bug?
It is my bug. Well, it's one of, so this has a bunch of bugs, and this is one of them is mine.
Yeah, so one thing cool about being hosted on Azure is that we get Azure App Insights, and we use it a ton to improve the quality of our site. And so like here, we kind of have a time, like I like to keep track of how our metrics are going. So this is one of the views that I have. And so I have, like, we have been pushing for reducing, getting like as close to zero as possible with like our exception like handling. And so a year ago or so, we had like 6,000 exceptions, and we've been improving and looking at App Insights to like see what's going on with the code. So we're gonna look at one that I filed for you, John.
So this one is one that came from, we use a lot of different services, and we also build a lot of like JSON files behind the scenes. So when you access a page, it's able to very quickly just render something. It's not calling out to services on the fly. We have a community page, we'll look at it a little more in a second, where it lists some upcoming events and things. And there's a JSON file. And the JSON file actually should be a local file that it's requesting. It should actually technically never fail. So when I wrote the code, I mean, in my brain, I thought this will always be there. But this exception, and like it clearly proves me wrong, what I liked about this was having the App Insights issue. It showed me the line of code. It showed me the exact file that it tried to request and was missing. And so on the next slide, we'll see it was a very simple like fix to go in and just check and say, and the way that this was shown, these were a list of events. And so if we can't load those events, just render the rest of the page. Like it's, you know, like don't bomb out, just render the rest of the page. So here I just check and I say, go get it if it's empty. And nerd note here, I used enumerable.empty because that's supposed to be the most performant. So anyways, So, but this was a great example of using App Insights to very kind of efficiently go through. You reported a bug to me. I knew exactly what to fix and how to test it. So.
Yeah, and there were other like very cool bugs that we have addressed. Like we had some non-ASCII characters, like people would put in like these URLs, but we have some redirection rules in place, and then it was just like exploding and getting a 500 error, which is really bad. So it's like we've been improving the quality of the site and the experience for all our users. All right, moving on to some of the new additions.
Yeah, let's go to my machine. So we're going to talk about some features we've added recently. So this is the .NET Live TV site. You'll notice it's with the updated website. We'll talk about that a little bit more soon, which is really cool, dark mode. And so this shows all these kind of upcoming and live streams. If you go to this page right now, live.net, you'd see the .NET Conf, because that's what's on. And we wanted to have a kind of the source of truth be YouTube. So we don't want to have to go and update JSON files or do different things in order to keep things. We basically, as soon as this show is scheduled, we want it to be live. We want it to show both upcoming and completed ones. We want to show when there's a show that's live, we want a little flashing thing at the top of the screen. Easily scale to add more shows. We've scaled up and scaled down shows over time. We also collect metrics and generate reports. So a lot of stuff. So the system we put together for this is we have an Azure function. It queries both YouTube, it hits the YouTube APIs, and it also hits the some JSON files, and then it sends those actually over to Azure Search. And then the website consumes that. It has a Blazor front end, hits a function that reads a JSON file. So some nice things about this, we can scale our API calls using Azure Functions. It's very kind of lightweight and compact. We can very easily kind of query what's going on there. And then for the front end, it can, it does very little work. It just basically reads a JSON file and renders stuff. So we'll look at how that works real quick. We'll go over to, here's the function. So we're doing some kind of very simple things here. We're just going and querying. We have a service, and it goes out, and it can read a specific video or different ones. And then this is something that took me way too long. Your timer triggers can actually use an expression, so that I was able to put that in the setting. So that uploads into a JSON blob, and then reading them, it's an Azure function that just does a get, and it just says like get all future videos, and it just returns JSON. So that's really simple on the back end. And then on the front end, we've got a Blazor site, and we're able to kind of integrate this in. So the rest of the website is Razor Pages. But for this section, there's enough kind of front-end interaction where we thought this makes sense to do as Blazor. So we've got, here's our kind of host page that's hosting the Blazor components. And then if we look here, like here's the actual, like here's our video player. So we're able to write kind of standard, HTML and integrate things, but then integrate that into the Blazor page. The one other thing I want to show off here, this is actually a .NET 6 feature that I like, is error boundary. So that's just something that they introduced in .NET 6, but it's a neat feature where if there's some issue with loading, it can basically error out and show that. So what's nice with this is a really kind of maintainable, lightweight solution to build this front end, and it allows us to build a really nice experience we can iterate on. And then the back end is just automatically updating. So that's one neat feature.
Super cool.
Yeah, I want to show.
Love it.
So one other neat thing I want to show off here is the community page. So we've got two different things going on there. We're showing blog posts. Today, there's a ton of blog posts going out.
Yes.
And then also we want to show events. So I'll show quickly how we do that. So that's in, we have another function doing similar sorts of things, reading and creating JSON files. And then on the kind of inside the site itself, we have, let me see this. OK, so we have just straight up Razor pages. It's calling into a backend that does, it's pretty simple, just builds a simple model for us, queries some different things and sets it up. The thing I wanted to show off here is I think this is a completely underrated tag, this cache tag. So you can go, you can cache things. So I just, query for posts, get 4 of them and then cache it. And so the website itself has to do very little. Similar sort of thing here on the back end for the events page. We do some queries to build a model. And then on the front end, this is another unknown thing. You can inject things really easily. So I use this a lot, like to inject services and things. We use a cache tag here again. And then we just iterate through and write them out. So the main reason I wanted to show that stuff as far as kind of features is to just show we're not telling you one thing, writing docs one way and teaching one thing, and then doing weird other like super optimized things. Yeah. You're running a website at huge scale, and I'm writing just straight up standard Razor pages. So
yeah. And it's interesting that you talk about caching, because like when we went live with the live TV, we had like some problems with scaling because our caching wasn't as good as it could be. So we implemented a bunch of caching and improved that. So that is like now, because that data is not like refreshing very often. And so it's like, we can cache it for a day. I don't know what's the setting.
Yeah,
right now.
I think some of these are down as, like 30 minutes or something. But in some cases you can get a lot of scale even by like a 1-minute cache, know? So, yeah.
All right, and so now we can switch back to my mic machine. And so we're gonna talk about website localization as well. So that's something that we've started last year. And so we shipped our first 2 other languages beside English. So now we support Japanese and simplified Chinese. And so we decided to use PO files, so portable object files with Orchard Core for our localization project. And so for those not familiar with PO files, they are a pair of ID and translation. And so for the English version, the message string is empty, but then for each language, we get a file that has the pair of English and the translation. So it's so super easy to see the translation and even problems. So typically, in the past for .NET, you'd use the regex files. But some of the advantages that we have using PO files is that they support pluralization that we are not currently using in the .NET website, but that's something that you can take advantage of. They are not compiled, so you don't need any special tooling, and build steps are not required. For our pipeline, we have some because of how our process with the interaction with the localization team works. And then it works well with collaborative online editing tools. So a lot of teams use Crowdin, and I wanted to show here, like code.org and Microsoft MakeCode, they post their PO files on Crowdin
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then you can go out and help like
cool.
to translate. And so like if you have an open source project, you could do that for your project.
I like too the way, so the localization system that's built into ASP.NET like is extensible. And so there's the in the box like ResX style, but like being able to plug this in, this is just straight up middleware in ASP.NET Core.
And I'll show it just in a second. And we use the tool called PO extractor. So on every PR or part of the pipeline if we forget. And so let me see, where's the, okay, it didn't work, but anyway, I had a screenshot. Let me go back to, so this is.
Oh, you got to stop presenter mode. Yeah.
So this is a screenshot of the PO extractor tool running. And so we have like, it takes like a few seconds to scan all of our repos and our like to get all the localizable strings. So it's super cool and super fast to just like get all the changes in and port it. And then I wanted to show.
Oh, the website redesign.
Yes. So let's go. So you can see like all the middleware.
Oh, you're still sharing your screen. I know it's tricky.
Okay.
It always gets me.
All right. And so, and this, we are in the process of adding 3 new languages. So hopefully like going live this week or the next. So like we're super close. And so you see how easy now that we've implemented the middleware to add new languages. And so you can see here like how the PO file looks and let's go to .NET. While that loads, let's see if it's gonna load or not. All right, it's taking a while. So let's skip to our redesign project because we're cutting short now. But yeah, like last week on Friday, who launches on a Friday? But,
well, you do.
Well, yeah, so we were getting close to .NET 7 launch. We wanted a fresh new look for the site. We wanted something that looked cool and modern. And so we work with our design team at Microsoft to build start building like this cool new site where you can see like the images are 3D and we have redesigned some of we have like we can see us live here if we play.
Yeah.
So we started the redesign with a couple of pages, and over time we'll get to the entire site and revisit the journey. But the goal here is to make it easier for you to find what you're looking for here. We started implementing Tailwind CSS as well to experiment with that and see if that will give us more flexibility and maybe some of the cool features that come with that. And so we're really excited about this launch, and it supports dark mode. So
that's a win.
Yeah.
Wow. So it looks like we're just about out of time. I mean, there's so much cool stuff we could talk about. I think, it's amazing what you're able to do with such a small team. I like the feeling of a developer working with your CI/CD kind of system and with the way you manage it. It's great to be able to pop in, create a feature, and kind of pop out.
Yeah. Thank you.